The T250s look more like player irons than player distance irons with their compact heads and super clean lines, but they don't demand what a true player's iron demands. They sit squarely in the player distance iron category with higher launch, more forgiveness, and more distance, but that distance is controlled and consistent for better scoring. Titleist says the T250s cater more towards the mid-handicapper, but after a few rounds and range sessions, I have my doubts. So let's break down what these are, who they're for, and why their performance may tell a different story than what Titleist claims. All right, so let's talk about the looks of the T250. Right away, super duper premium player iron. The heads are compact, probably a little more compact than what you expect from a player distance iron, but the player distance design features, you have the thicker sole and you have the thicker top line. So thicker but not thick. I would say probably more medium than anything else. Super sleek and elegant like you've come to expect from a Titleist iron. Honestly, they do player irons better than any other manufacturer, or at least as well, usually better. Super sleek, super clean, super minimal, which is what I really love. Just probably the best looking iron I've ever laid my eyes on, and certainly the best of 2025. All right, so we're going to go through how the T250s perform. We're going to cover launch, forgiveness, and distance, and we're even going to throw in some long irons. First with launch, high and straight is default for the T250s, but I had quite a few occasions on the course where I needed to or wanted to flight the ball down. And I did that very easily, and I was using the pitching wedge, 9-iron and 8-iron for that. So high by default with high carry, but you can bring that down as needed. Forgiveness wise, for a player distance iron, you've got ample forgiveness. I wouldn't say they're game improvement forgiveness, but you can miss by a little bit. You have some margin of error, and they're especially helpful when you hit the ball thin, which is what I did quite a few times. And when I did that, I noticed the flight did come down, although they're designed to keep the flight up, but I maintained the distance and I evidently maintained the spin because it would settle within a yard or so of wherever it hit the green. Okay, so distance wise, the lofts are about one club strong, but it's not consistent through the whole set. But it starts with the pitching wedge, which is 43 degrees. My personal pitching wedge is 46, and that's kind of standard. But once you get into player distance irons or game improvement irons, those lofts get quite a bit stronger. So in general, short irons up through mid irons, they're playing a club stronger. So you can expect about a club more in distance, and that's about what I got consistently with these clubs. You can take distance off when you need, and the distance was consistent. It wasn't like a hot shot that fly over a green or into trouble. It was like very consistent. Once you figured out your distance with the club, that was your distance. Minor mishits will cost you 5-6 yards. On occasion, you can stand on these two and add a few yards. So bottom line, controllable and consistent distance for better scoring. The long irons, this is the 5-iron here. I don't get to practice long irons as much as I would like. In fact, when I play, I kind of play around them, but I still score well. I was able to hit quite a few, what I consider for me, high shots that really held the green. Some of the easier to hit long irons in a player iron or a player distance iron that I've tried. Now let's talk about sound and feel for the T250s. Not soft and solid like a pure player iron or even some of the other player distance irons I've tested. More of a soft or muted click when you catch it in the center, and the click gets a little more pronounced as you miss the sweet spot by more. They remind me more of the T200s than the T100s or the T150s from Titleist. Let's talk about value for the T250s versus their competitors. They come in around $214 per club, which is about $14 more per club than the prior highest priced clubs I've tested. We're talking about the P790s and the Apex AI 200s, which come in around $200 per club, which is kind of standard for the player iron category or player distance iron category. But this is pretty standard pricing for Titleist. All right, so who do I think the T250s are for and who they're not for? I think if you're a low handicapper or a better mid handicapper, and I'm talking 10 handicap on down, these are great irons for you. If you're around a 10 a mid-handicap who's around a 10 or 11 or 12, you can definitely test these and try and hit them. I just think you have better options on the market. I love these for low handicaps, and I love these, like I said, for 10 handicaps on down. Who are they not for? Now, Titleist says they cater mainly or mostly to mid-handicaps. I doubt that. Because the mid-handicap range covers a wide variety of players. I think anything above, say, a 12, you definitely don't want to come hunting for these T250s. You have better options on the table. All right, so what are some good alternatives to the T250s? I like three in particular. The new 2025 P790s, or even the 2023s to be fair. Similar performance, maybe even a little bit better, and the 2025s especially have better sound and feel, and they come in around $200 per club new. The next is the Callaway Apex AI 200s. One of my favorite sets I tested this year. Equal or better performance. Not a lot of difference, but maybe a little bit better. And better sound and feel. They also come in around $200 per club. The next on the list are the Mizuno JPX 925 Hot Metal Pros. Excellent performance, at least as good as the T250s, probably even a little bit better. And if you know Mizuno JPX irons, they have the best sound and feel in the game. And they come in at $150 per club, an absolute screaming bargain. So that's some viable alternatives for you if you're not into or you don't like the T250s. All right, so what's the bottom line on the Titleist T250s? I think they do exactly what Titleist says they do. They launch the ball high, they go far, and they have ample forgiveness. Are they the best performing irons in the category? No, I don't think so, but they're not far off. They just happen to have very stiff competition this year. Who do they best serve? As I mentioned earlier, I think if you're around a 10 handicap on down, these are great irons for you to test and try. If you're looking for even more forgiveness, the 2025 T350s are up next. I'll be testing those soon. And the links for the other irons I talked about are in the description below.